This podcast is brought to you by Renewal by Andersen of Central Pennsylvania. Listen, finding a reliable contractor for your windows can be hard, but that's why Renewal by Andersen of Central Pennsylvania is around. And right now you can get one window or door and get another window or door for 40% off with $0 down, 0 payments, and 0% interest for a whole year. Call 717-727-7558 or visit rbacentralpa.com to learn more. Deal ends July 31st. A state agency is giving hospitals the option of answering questions regarding infant deaths and injuries. Meanwhile, one county must now hand over autopsy reports to journalists. A township's residents are being warned about a coyote. Lastly, birdwatchers got a treat. I'm Claudia Dimuro, and you're listening to Today in a PA. The Pennsylvania Patient Safety Authority, in a 6-2 vote, won't make a series of questions related to infant death and injuries mandatory for hospitals, but instead optional, reports PennLive. The authority was formed in 2002 to collect reports on such serious events along with others at hospitals in order to identify preventable problems and to advise locations on how to improve patient safety. A state law requires for locations to report such incidents to the authority, although the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, aka HAP, explains that hospitals don't believe they are legally required to provide such information related to internal investigations. According to HAP, they fear that giving such details will nullify certain federal and state legal protections that allow for them to study these mistakes without fear of punishment. However, one authority member argued that these incidents won't be able to be fully understood or prevented in the future without those questions being mandatory. Board member Eric White, who voted for optional, agreed that newborn injuries and deaths, of which there were 169 in Pennsylvania last year, are, quote, an issue of moral importance, unquote. However, the authority wants, quote, not to focus blame, but to try and see if we can curb some of the trends being reported. Allegheny County must now release a medical examiner's full autopsy report to journalists as well as the general public at large, reports the Tribune Review. The Commonwealth Court in a 6-1 decision on Tuesday ruled this to be so, reversing an earlier trial court ruling in a move that media law counsel for the Pennsylvania News Media Association, Melissa Muleski, calls, quote, a great win for public access. It all started when reporter Brittany Haler of the Pittsburgh Institute for Nonprofit Journalism filed a public records request a few years ago regarding an inmate who died at Allegheny County Jail on Thanksgiving Day 2020. 19 inmates total have passed away at the jail since January of that year, giving it one of the highest death rates per capita in the U.S. Initially, county officials argued that since the area is a second-class county based on its population, laws about releasing autopsy records don't apply to them in the same way they would other counties. In reversing this decision, Judge Eileen Seisler contested this fact, writing, quote, there is no language in the Right to Know law or Coroner's Act to suggest that access to certain public records depends on the county class in which the records are located. Allegheny County officials now have up to 30 days to appeal the matter to the state Supreme Court. There's a coyote that's either sick or injured roaming around Delaware County, states CBS Local Philadelphia. Radnor Township Police and Animal Control stated this week they've received numerous reports of the animal, the last of which was in Rosemont. If you're in the area, you're urged to stay away from the coyote if you see it, and to keep an eye on your pets, should you have any. Also, please call the police if you see the coyote yourself. Limpkins are a type of bird that typically hang out in subtropical climates like Florida, explains PennLive. Which is why it was such a treat for birdwatchers and enthusiasts to spot one right here in Pennsylvania. A limpkin was seen around the Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area in Lancaster County last week, making for a sighting that State Game Commission biologist aide Emma Hamaker calls, quote, really interesting. However, limpkins have been making their way up north in recent years, possibly due to factors including habitat loss and climate change. Whatever the case, those who saw the bird hanging out eating snails were absolutely delighted. That wraps up today's episode. For even more news, check out PennLive.com. And please remember to rate this podcast and to share it around with your family and your friends. Thanks in advance, and of course, thanks for listening. I'm Claudia Dimuro, and I'll talk to you tomorrow for another episode of Today in PA. This podcast is brought to you by Renewal by Andersen of Central Pennsylvania. Listen, finding a reliable contractor for your windows can be hard, but that's why Renewal by Andersen of Central Pennsylvania is around. And right now you can get one window or door and get another window or door for 40% off with $0 down, 0 payments, and 0% interest for a whole year. Call 717-727-7558 or visit rbacentralpa.com to learn more. Deal ends July 31st.